All right, guys, I'm here with a photographer, a Los Angeles-based photographer. Her name is Brooke Shaden. She does some really cool stuff. I got to tell you, we're going to specifically be talking about her book. It's called Inspiration in Photography, right here, that I have in my hot little hands, and the subtitle is "Train Your Mind to Make Great Art a Habit," and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about here. So, Brooke, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's good to have you. Okay, so let's jump in and just talk about your background a little bit before we dive into how to train your mind to make art a habit. So You're in LA. How did you make your way to? Were you born in LA? Did you go there to find fame and fortune? What's the deal?
Kind of. I moved there after college because I thought that I was going to be a filmmaker. So I had gone to school for filmmaking and English, and I was writing screenplays and thought that LA was the place to be. Yeah. And I knew that it was either the warm weather or New York, and I didn't want to stay in the cold weather. I'm from Pennsylvania. So I decided to go for LA, but I never really felt like I belonged there. It wasn't really a place that I wanted to be. I'm much more of a small town girl. I actually just moved out of Los Angeles, so that feels really good. Now I'm in a small town in the Southwest, and it's wonderful. I thought I was going to be a filmmaker, and so I went out there and I tried my best for about 6 months, and then I decided never mind, and that's when I really started looking at photography seriously.
Nice. So now you're a published author. Is this book your first book?
It's my first book that's been published with a publishing company. Okay. I had a self-published book before. That was one of my huge dreams in life, was to have a book. So I did it on my own first, and then finally got hooked up with some publishers. Yeah,
and I'm sure doing it on your own kind of greased the wheels a little bit towards doing it with a full-on publisher, right?
Yeah, and in a way, I've been dreaming about this book since I was little, so it felt really natural to write, and it was just kind of me putting everything that I love to think about into words and putting it on pages.
Love it, love it. And like I was telling you before we started recording, the book is really well made. I mean, it's the content, of course, notwithstanding, is awesome, but the quality of the book, I think Focal Press did a really good job putting this thing together. And even the gold type on the cover, it's really, really well done. So writing this book was one of your sort of lifelong things on your list. You checked it off. Take me into the book. So what was the impetus of the book besides just, okay, I want to write a book? What problem are you solving, and who are you speaking to with this book?
Generally, I'm speaking to anybody who wants to live a more inspired life. And that's really the goal here. So even though it's geared towards photography, it's all about finding inspiration to create photographs. You could extend that beyond photography to any part of your life. How do I find inspiration in life in general? How do I apply that and stay motivated to then continue through with that? So the book is just me wanting to reach out to people who want to change, who want to be inspired, who want to be motivated. And reaching out to those people and saying, you know what, you're not alone. There are thousands, millions of people out there who also want to be inspired, who just aren't quite sure how to hold on to that inspiration and then take it somewhere.
Yeah. And the word inspiration is kind of nebulous and ethereal in some ways, right? So, because from a photographer standpoint, looking at it just from that lens, so to speak, it's, okay, I have this great camera. We talk about gear a lot on the show. I have this great camera that can do stuff that photographers decades ago could only dream of, and I have it for like $500, right? So you have all this stuff, but then now you're faced almost with like writer's blinking cursor, blank screen syndrome. I have this awesome thing, so I have no excuse. I have an internet, and there's a million places for me to share the images, so the path is now free of resistance to getting the work out there. Now the onus is on the artist to go out and shoot. So now the problem becomes for a lot of people what that is. What do I shoot? What do I want to be, a landscape photographer and be like a Trey Ratcliffe? Do I want to do glamour and be like a Sue Bryce? What do I do? What do you tell people when they're stuck there? They're the soldier that's geared up, got all their weapons and everything to go out to war, but then they're not sure which war they should fight.
Well, I think that's exactly the issue sometimes, is that, we think, okay, now I've got the newest camera, and now I've got Photoshop, and I've got this and that, and so now I can do anything. Yeah. And that's true. You can do anything. It's just like you said, there's just a blank screen in front of you. You can create whatever you want. But that's the issue, is that so many people get it in their minds that once they have all that equipment, the ideas will just be there and they'll just be able to create. But instead, the opposite is true. And we're confronted with this blankness, this blank canvas of, okay, now I have to put myself onto that canvas. Right. And I think that part of it is figuring out what you love at the most basic level, is just saying, you know, if I could go out today and do anything, what would that be? If I could just photograph anything in the world, what would that be? Maybe it would be a certain color, a certain person, a certain location, you know, whatever makes you happiest. Yeah. And that's how I started photography, was not because I liked photography. I never wanted to experiment with the medium. I just wanted to put my stories and ideas out there based on what I love daydreaming about. And so that's where I tell people to start, is just, what do you love? And I think that when people are honest with themselves about that and they really take a step back and reevaluate themselves as a person, then they know who they are as an artist.
Yeah, that's amazing. See, that's powerful. I think, you know, I'd paraphrase that into reverse engineer your dreams, right? So,
yes, exactly.
So you have a dream of, man, I had a dream of like an angel floating on a cloud and then it's raining upside down and all this stuff. And then you have that in your mind's eye, you sketch it out. Then you say, okay, all right, now what do I need to do to create that? Okay, well, I probably need to get some shots of clouds and I need a model to shoot the angel. And then I got to figure out how to make it look real. So you reverse engineer it rather than the reverse, which is a lot of photographers like, okay, I'm standing outside and I got to make some art. There's a beetle. Let me go shoot it, you know, and figure it out from there.
Yeah, I'm extremely analytical when it comes to my photography. So, you know, I'm not the kind of person that's going to sit around and wait to be inspired, because that's not reliable enough. That's not how I want to live my life. I want to know that every single day I can go out and create something that's meaningful to me. And it might not always work. It might not be the best thing I've ever created. But if on that particular day it makes me feel something, then I'm doing something right. Yeah. And so I want to be able to work backwards, like you said, and to say, okay, now what inspires me? Make lists, write down paragraphs of words that just, you know, if I can go back to that and be inspired, it's going to work every time. That's what I want. So yeah, I'm working backwards. I'm trying to deconstruct my thoughts in a way that puts it into terms that I can understand. So, you know, maybe I'll be sitting here having some weird daydream about running through the forest or something. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to deconstruct that and say, okay, well, where is this forest that I can shoot? What would I be wearing? What color is my wardrobe going to be? What angle should the camera be at? And things like that.
Yeah. Now, Brooke, do you keep a sketchbook of ideas that you just like something hits you when you're walking around? You're like, okay, that's interesting. And then do you sketch it out, or do you write a list? Do you have like a list of just
all
words?
All of the above. Okay. I do everything. I have several sketchbooks that I keep, and I do attempt to sketch. It's mostly just stick figures and stuff. I'm better at writing. Yeah. So instead of, I do sketch, but mostly I write out paragraphs. Yeah. So I'll typically have about 3 paragraphs, give or take, where I'm writing every little detail that I can think of, from the wardrobe, location, prop, color, things like that, into the technical side of what will it look like in Photoshop, and then, you know, lists of things that I need for the day, because I am notorious for running out the house without my CF card and stuff like that. Yeah. So I always have to be very thorough.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk a little bit about just drawing the line, if there's a line, maybe it's a blurry line, between journalism and documentary photography on one side, and creating art from nothing on the other side. And let me frame the question, because there's been debate about when you take a photo. Some photographers say, you know, you're not a real photographer if you mess with it. You know, you go out there, you take a photo, and you don't even crop it. It should be what you saw, you know, in the viewfinder should be what you show people. And then there's other photographers, and I would put myself into that other photographer category, where I feel if I want to create a piece of art, then all bets are off when it comes to the pixels on that page. Like I say on the show, pixels were born to be punished. So I will go in a lot of ways. You go in and you capture the elements and then put them together. Where do you fall on that? Is it when you go out and you're saying, okay, you know, I need a tree for this background of this image. Let me go take some pictures of trees and then composite it in. Are you that person, or do you try to get it all right in the camera?
I do both. You know, I think that I hate putting labels on things. And so people always say, well, what kind of a photographer are you? And I say, whatever you want to call me, that's fine. It doesn't really matter because it doesn't affect the end product. You know, I could go have a gallery show and not say anything about what the medium is, and people will still have a reaction to it in the same way. So I just don't see the need to put a label on it. But there are times when I have to, you know, for certain things that I'm doing where somebody says, okay, well, you have to define yourself in some way. And there's a good and a bad to that, because if you define yourself, then you're telling people who you are and what you want to be rather than letting other people define you. So I say that I'm a fine art photographer. And I say that because what I do is very photographic. I take pictures, I put those pictures together. I don't create anything that is not photographically based. And my process is extraordinarily simple. It's a matter of layer masking. I mean, that's all that I do in Photoshop. So on one hand, you know, there are people saying you're a digital artist, but then I feel like I would be lying if I said that, because there are so many amazing digital artists who do amazing things with a computer, and I'm not one of those people. But on the other hand, I'm not capturing life as it really is, and I take pride in that. That's not what I want to do. So, you know, we'll leave it open, I suppose. But I think, you know, just shoot what you want and do what you want with it, and then don't put a label on it, because it doesn't really matter. Yeah,
no, that's the excellent words. And people, it's just weird. Like, maybe leaning more towards the let's label thing group. It seems like photographers fit in that, you know. So we have to label you as a, even down to gear. Oh, you're a Nikon shooter, you're a Sony shooter, you're a Canon shooter, or you're a Lightroom user, or a photo, or you know, Aperture user, or whatever. They have to put you in these categories. When it's like you were saying, it's refreshing to hear you say that. It's not about the stuff that. It's not about the car that you use to get to the destination. It's the destination.
Exactly.
When you get to the party, they're not saying, "Oh, dude, are you a Ford driver?" Or are you?
Right.
No one cares.
Right.
You're
exactly.
there. Right. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, if I can promote anything, it's the fact that, you know, use what you have to create and make that work for you, and then upgrade if you want to, and that can be awesome as well if you have a great camera and the newest version of Photoshop. But do you have to have it to create? No, you don't. Yeah. And so I just think that everybody should just remember that whatever you can get your hands on is the best tool for you at that moment.
Yeah. Well, Brooke, let's close this off with just some quick thoughts about just inspiration in general. Again, the book is called Inspiration in Photography. Here it is again. I love it, and I'll link to it in the various places where the show's going to show up. But let's just talk about inspiration and some concrete ways that people can get inspired. What can they do to sort of break their pattern to go out and get inspired and to bring some cool things into the computer to work with?
Definitely. I mean, well, one of the exercises that I lay out in the book, which is one of my absolute favorites to do, I've been doing this exercise for the last 4 years now, and it's worked for me almost every single time, is to very simply deconstruct an image like we've been talking about. Break it down into prop, location, wardrobe, and color. Those are 4 basic categories that most images will use, unless you're not shooting a person, of course.
Right.
But considering you are, you write down these 4 categories, and then instantly you just start writing down every word that comes to your mind per category. So for prop, you might write down cat, blanket, tree, leaf, anything that comes to your mind, color, purple, red, green, orange. And then by the end of about 2 minutes, if you just spend 30 seconds per category, you have all of these words laid out that were already in your mind, that for some reason you were thinking about. Yeah. And so once you have all that written down, you can see very clearly what your mind is working on at the moment. From there, I choose 1 word per category. And then you already have a photo idea. So you will have a location picked out, a prop, a wardrobe, and a color. And once you have all of those things, all you have to do is just make it your own. Yeah. So, you know, if I picked forest, girl, cloak, purple, then maybe I would have a girl in a purple cloak running through the forest. Yeah. So, you know, instantly it's this idea that you can expand on and grow and make your own. So, you know, that's one way that anybody can find inspiration. And I love watching people find inspiration that way, because it's just such a good way of taking yourself out of yourself for a moment and saying, okay, what am I really like and why do I love these things?
I love it. I love it. It's great advice. I think if people take one thing out of this interview, it will be the idea of working backwards from your vision, and then even going forward, you know, kind of getting that inspiration by doing your homework and those brain thought sort of exercises on paper first or on the screen, whatever, and then working backwards to create the vision in the beginning. So what about frequency? Just really quickly, there's varying degrees of frequency that people post things online. I see some photographers are posting images multiple times a day. Some post once a day, some once a week, some hardly ever. Every now and then you'll see something pop up from them. I know there's no one right answer to it, but for you, what's frequency? Is it, you have some photographers have a queue of images that they've already worked on and they just sort of drip feed them out to the audience. And some are just as you go, like, oh, I had inspiration and I created this image and now I'm going to share it with you. How do you think about that?
I do a little bit of both. I try to keep it consistent, mostly because, I want to inspire people on a regular basis. And I don't want people to fall off and think, oh, she's not doing anything. Yeah. Because me doing something, I can only hope will inspire somebody else to do something. So I try to post new images anywhere from 1 to 4 a week. And so that's what I'm putting out there. And if it's not a picture, then it's a blog post. And if it's not a blog post, then it's a quote that I like or something like that, just to keep people, inspired and excited to go create on their own.
I love it. Okay, well, where can people go see some of these postings and follow you online and all that good stuff?
My Facebook is sort of the hub right now where I like to post everything first. So that's Brooke Shaden Photography. And my website is where you can get to everything else. So brookeshaden.com, and that has Twitter and Facebook and all of those things on there.
Perfect. Well, Brooke, thank you for taking the time out of your day to...
Oh, thank you.
This has been awesome. Again, the book is called Inspiration in Photography. It's awesome, and I haven't finished it yet because it is... you've got some crazy shots in here. This is really good. It's a really, really inspirational book. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon.